Yes, indeed. Here to shed some more light on the President's speech is Mr. Sina Fagbenro-Byron, who is the Regional Coordinator of the Department for International Development. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Well, looking through this speech or listening to the report as well, some of those things that stand out centered around development
Yes.
of the country, basically. So all that he highlighted that is done, the promises he said he's made that he intends to keep, all geared to ensure that we occupy a prided place in the Committee of Nations. But from what you've seen, juxtaposing his speech and the reality on ground, how far or close are they?
Okay. I guess we're saying all this in the context of the 54th anniversary.
That's right.
Of Nigerians, and I just want to say congratulations to all Nigerians on their 54th anniversary. We've got a lot to thank God for, I mean, quite frankly, over the years. And whatever you see today is actually manifestations of things that have happened in the past and people's responses to them. Some of it is also as a result of things that are, how things are being currently managed. So you got issues, particularly in a country like Nigeria, you've got three major issues. You've got the leadership, you've got the ownership, and you've got the management. And the president's speech, of course, it was a sober speech, sobering speech as well, which was something I credited for. It also mentioned everything that you might as well mention. Some people would have wanted a few more specifics, as I have read elsewhere, such as the hope for a reaffirmation of the Chibok girls and things like that. But neither here nor there. He made a statement on terrorism generally, which in itself encapsulated a lot of that. Having said that, at Nigeria's 54th year, it's necessary for us to sit back and take a look at a few statistics. And that will tell us exactly where we're going. Because not everything can be seen in just the short term, nor can it be seen in terms of just one government, nor can it be seen in terms of just one president. Goodluck Jonathan is in a relay race. He received the baton and he will deliver the baton. And the success in any relay team is the ability for smooth baton exchange, pace, speed, and, of course it will take an element of practice and seriousness. There are some statistics. Nigeria is the country with the largest out-of-school children in the world. That's one. Two, Nigeria is the country with the largest internally displaced in the world. Three, the gap between the rich and the poor in Nigeria is widest in the world. Four, then we have so many resources. Now, if you look at all those statistics, they are threatening in the sense that they don't take care of the future at all. As a matter of fact, they jeopardize the future. Because the largest number of children out of school now, what are they going to be in 10 years' time? And the manifestation of some of these indices is what you see in this Boko Haram, in the, But the fact that God is gracious and there are people in Nigeria that are working and sacrificing in spite of all this is how you see the success in our ability to manage the Ebola virus situation and a couple of other things that we are doing that are doing right.
You talked about this very, very dire statistics. First of all, I think it was the World Bank that gave the statistics that we have
One
about
was UNICEF. The one in terms of out-of-school children is UNICEF.
10 million children out of school, I believe. That was the figure.
I don't know the numbers exactly, but in comparative terms, the population of children out of school in Nigeria is much more for any other than any other country in the world. That means children who are supposed to be in school. Well, we haven't. You see, the point I have here is that Nigeria itself as a country should pay more attention in measuring some of these indicators themselves. Right. The UNICEF is providing indicators, the World Bank is providing indicators, DFID is providing indicators. Virtually every serious international effort at development is providing indicators because it is measuring it as it goes. And a friend of mine says that what you don't measure, you cannot manage.
But having measured this,
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know if you're going to talk about the Safe School Initiative, which is could it be a direct response to that?
It is a direct response to it. Fine, but it's a short-term. I mean, you know what responses are. You should have a short-term response. You have a longer-term response, and the longer-term response is in the fact that is the right to education. Is it part of the Nigerian citizenship? You see, because what seems to be in contention is what exactly does Nigerian citizenship mean? What can it give you? And what responsibilities does it extract from you? If the Nigerian citizenship includes the right to education, then the entire Nigerian armed forces should be ready to defend that right. But we haven't found what a Nigerian citizenship is. And this is what we hoped that the National Conference would have done and signed off on. But, you know, everybody's trying. They did their best.
So when we mouth patriotism, oftentimes we don't even know what that means.
When we what?
Say patriotism, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. From whose angle? From what angle? From what balance of responsibilities?
It's quite interesting that you bring in that perspective. But, you know, I was going to say that nobody has really challenged those figures. As you rightly said, that, you know, the state itself, this Nigerian state, needs to be involved in also taking part in measuring the statistics.
How much does Nigeria spend on research?
That's the question. Because the reason I ask this is because many states seem to have taken up some initiative on education.
Yes.
You know that education is a concurrent matter. So you have the federal government, you know, supporting. You also have the state governments also doing certain things to ensure that children are not out of school. Because they've also found out that in states where there are no conflicts, and even where education is free, children still don't go to school.
You're right, because there are so many factors that discourage children from school. There's the issue of access to education generally, the issue of school fees in some areas, the issue of access in terms of physical access, and the fact that you go to a building does not mean you are going to school. And people should really think about that. What does that mean?
So do you think that they could have been counting whether or not any education or any learning was going on in the structures that the children were going to?
The point is that you have average statistics of the number of schools and whether they are functioning. Let me ask you a simple question. Do you know how many out of university students were out of school this year, last year alone?
Do we also count university students?
We don't, they don't. But what I'm telling you, to know how many times the universities have been out of work, those you can compute, technically speaking, the number of university undergraduates that were even out of school. That is another reason for being out of school, industrial action. So there's a body, there's a basket of indicators, and this is why we need, if we don't measure them in detail, we wouldn't manage them. I mean, we try to, what the states are doing in Nigeria that is good is to try and disaggregate all these statistics. Whether it's gross development, let's treat each state as a nation. It is a nation, quite frankly. Nigeria is more than just one nation now. It's a federation. So to call Nigeria one nation is maybe incorrect. It's a federation. And so each state must be measuring, you measure your MDGs, you measure your GDP, you measure your growth rate, you measure your national income, your state income per year. You know, basic statistics that we don't measure, we don't take charge of. Health, birth, death, migration, which is supposed to be the responsibility of every local government. One thing we can do to jumpstart ourselves into the future is to make sure compulsorily all local governments measure birth, death, immigration. By so doing, you can manage the people. And this is where my whole point comes to.
As a last one there, that last one, is quite a touchy one.
Which one?
Immigration.
You've got to
measuring immigration within states.
You see, they have to do that because, you see, it is unrealistic. If you go to most the kind of countries that we love our country to be like. When you're driving into the country, they tell you how many people are in that town. What is bad about knowing how many we are? It's what you will use to calculate. How do you know how many people you will care for if you don't know how many people you are managing? I mean, look, we need not to be sentimental about certain things. If you live in Lagos, let's know you live in Lagos. If you work in Lagos, let's know you work in Lagos. You see, it doesn't help if we confuse ourselves because of sentiments and because everybody doesn't want to be identified with the place. Nigeria is an indigenous population. Indigenship is a fundamental element of Nigeria's survival. So to wish that away is to be unrealistic with yourself. And what I'm saying is this. In any country, in any climate, if you cannot manage your human resources, you cannot manage anything. You cannot claim to be managing finances, claim to be managing resources, without being able to be managing the people, because it's the people that counts. It's the people that are the nation, it's the people that make the nation grow.